The disappearance of a teacher.
There was a young teacher in a small town who was respected by all the residents.
One day she just disappeared.
No one saw her leave, but a few days later, her car was found near an old forest.
The police didn't find anything, but there are rumors that some of the locals know what happened. No one talks about it out loud, but everyone knows it's better not to mention her name.
Some say she had been acting strangely in the weeks leading up to her disappearance.
She would glance over her shoulder as if being watched and left school in a hurry every day.
One student claimed she muttered about seeing something near her house. The town's elderly whispered that she had found something she shouldn't have, something buried deep in the town's past. But when asked, they would only shake their heads and refuse to say more.
The last person to see her was the janitor, who recalled her leaving the school late at night. She had a stack of papers and seemed distressed. She looked at me like she wanted to say something but changed her mind, he said.
That was the last anyone saw of her. A neighbor heard a car start near her house around midnight, but by morning, she was gone. Her front door was left slightly open, as if she had left in a hurry.
The forest where her car was found had a history of its own.
Decades ago, people spoke of disappearances there, wanderers who never returned, animals that avoided certain paths.
The police searched the woods but found no trace of her. However, an officer later admitted of the record that they had discovered something unsettling. Her shoes, placed neatly by an old well, as if she had taken them off willingly. Months passed, and her house remained untouched, frozen in time. Her books sat on the shelves, her plants slowly withered, and her mailbox filled with letters no one would ever read. Occasionally, children dared each other to peek inside, but none were brave enough to enter.
They said the air inside felt heavy, and some swore they saw shadows move behind the curtains, even though the house was empty.
One day, a letter arrived at the police station. It had no return address, only her handwriting on the envelope. Inside was a single sentence: "I shouldn't have looked." The police traced the letter's origin to a post office miles away, but security footage showed nothing, just the letter appearing in the Dropbox overnight. Some believed she was alive, while others thought it was someone playing a cruel joke. As the years passed, her story turned into a local legend.
People whispered that if you went into the forest at night and called her name, you would hear footsteps behind you, but if you turned around, there would be nothing there.
Some claimed they saw a figure standing among the trees, watching, but when they blinked, she was gone. Even now, no one dares to walk those woods alone. And yet, on certain nights, a light flickers in the window of her old house.
It's faint, like a candle struggling against the darkness. The authorities checked multiple times, only to find the house exactly as it had been, untouched, abandoned. But those who live nearby swear they still hear her voice, calling for help, just beyond the trees.
Fire in the old manor house. In the center of the city, there was an old abandoned manor house that belonged to a rich family. One night, it burned to the ground. Officially, it was called an accident, but everyone knows it was arson.
There are rumors that there were hidden treasures in the manor, or perhaps something much worse.
Locals don't even go near the place where it once stood. They say the ground is cursed, and nothing grows there anymore. Before the fire, strange things happened in that house. Some nights, people saw flickering lights inside, even though it had been empty for decades. A few brave teenagers tried to sneak in but ran out terrified, claiming they heard whispers coming from the walls. One even swore he saw a shadow move on the top floor, though no one believed him, at least not until the fire. The fire started suddenly, without warning. By the time anyone noticed, the flames had already swallowed most of the structure. Firefighters arrived, but the heat was unbearable. Witnesses said the fire burned too fast to hot, as if something inside had fueled it. Yet, despite the intensity, the surrounding trees and buildings remained untouched. The fire consumed only the manor. After the fire was out, the authorities searched through the rubble. What they found was disturbing traces of a hidden basement, one that had never been on the original blueprints. They tried to investigate further, but something stopped them. Every worker who entered the ruins fell ill afterward, plagued by nightmares of a woman crying in the dark. Eventually, the site was abandoned. Old records revealed that the original owner had a daughter who disappeared the night before their family fled the city. Some believed she was left behind, locked in the basement for reasons no one understood. There were even reports of people hearing knocking from beneath the floorboards years after the house had been abandoned. But no one had dared to check until it was too late. Rumors spread that someone had tried to uncover the secrets of the basement the night of the fire. Some said it was a treasure hunter, convinced there was gold hidden beneath the house.
Others whispered it was a distant relative of the family, hoping to learn the truth. Whoever it was, they were never found. The only thing left of them was a single melted flashlight near the ruins.
Now, the land where the manor once stood is empty.
No one builds there. No one even walks across it. Stray animals avoid it, and the air always feels colder than the rest of the city. Those who pass by at night sometimes hear faint crackling, like flames still burning beneath the earth. And if you listen closely, you might hear something else, a woman's voice, whispering for help.
No one speaks about the fire anymore, but everyone remembers.
The last person who tried to investigate moved away after just 1 week, claiming they woke up every night to the smell of smoke and a soft knocking at their door.
They left in the middle of the night without saying goodbye.
Now, when people pass by the empty lot, they walk a little faster and never, ever look back.
The mystery of the old bridge. On the outskirts of the town, there is an old bridge that no one uses. They say that many years ago, something terrible happened there.
Once, a group of teenagers decided to spend the night there, but in the morning, they were found in a state of terror.
They never told anyone what they saw, but after that, the locals started avoiding the bridge. No one knows what's going on there, but everyone knows it's better not to go near it, especially at night.
The bridge itself is ancient, built long before anyone in town can remember. Some say it was once part of a trade route, while others claim it was used for something far darker. Over the years, people have reported strange occurrences, voices whispering when no one is around, shadows moving beneath the bridge, and a heavy feeling in the air, as if something unseen is watching. Even birds refuse to land on it.
The teenagers who spent the night there never spoke of what happened, but their lives were never the same.
One of them moved away without warning, another stopped speaking entirely, and the last one was found staring at the bridge late at night, mumbling about something under the water. When asked, he only shook his head and said, "It's still there." After that, he never went near the bridge again.
Years ago, an old man claimed to know the truth. He said that long before the town was built, people used the bridge for sacrifices, offering something or someone to whatever lurked beneath. No one believed him until he vanished without a trace.
The only thing they found was his cane, lying in the middle of the bridge.
His house remained untouched, as if he had just stepped out and never returned. One night, a traveler who had never heard the stories decided to cross the bridge.
He laughed at the warnings and walked confidently across. Halfway through, he stopped. Witnesses say he stood there for minutes, staring at the water below.
Then, without a sound, he turned around and ran back to town, pale as a ghost.
He refused to speak of what he saw, only muttering, "It's waiting." A few years ago, the town tried to demolish the bridge. Workers arrived in the morning, but by noon, they had all left, refusing to explain why.
The company sent a second crew, but they never returned to finish the job. Eventually, the project was abandoned.
The bridge still stands untouched, as if something refuses to let it be destroyed.
The town stopped trying.
Now, no one crosses the bridge. The road leading to it is overgrown. The signs faded with time, but sometimes, on foggy nights, people claim to see figures standing on it, silent, unmoving.
Some say they are the lost souls of those who disappeared.
Others believe they are something else entirely. Whatever they are, one thing is certain. They are watching, waiting for someone to make the mistake of stepping onto the bridge. And if you do, you might hear it, the soft sound of water rippling beneath you, even if the river is still. The whisper of something unseen, calling your name. And if you listen too closely, if you let curiosity pull you forward, you might not come back. Because the bridge does not forget, and it does not forgive. A family secret. There is a family in town that everyone respects, but no one talks about their past. Many years ago, something happened that made them withdraw into themselves. There are rumors that they are hiding a terrible secret related to the disappearance of their relative.
No one dares to talk about it, but everyone knows that something is wrong.
Their house, though well kept, always feels strangely uninviting, as if the walls themselves are holding their breath. The missing relative was a young man, the eldest son of the family. One day, he simply vanished. The official story was that he left town, but no one believed it.
His friends said he would never have left without telling them.
His room remained untouched, as if waiting for his return. But the strangest part was how his family never spoke his name again.
It was as if he had never existed.
A few years after his disappearance, a neighbor swore she saw someone standing in the family's backyard late at night.
A tall figure, unmoving, watching the house.
She assumed it was one of them until she noticed something odd. He was standing in the exact spot where the son used to sit every evening.
When she mentioned it the next day, The family's matriarch went pale and told her never to bring it up again. There were whispers that the son had discovered something he shouldn't have. Some believed it was an old crime, a buried truth about the family's fortune. Others thought it was something much darker. An old man who once worked for them claimed the son had started acting strange before he vanished, avoiding certain rooms in the house, locking his door at night, and muttering about voices in the attic. One night, a distant relative came to visit. She had been away for years and didn't know about the silence surrounding the missing son. Casually, she asked about him over dinner. The entire family froze. No one answered. The air grew so thick with tension that she quickly changed the subject. Later, she told a friend that she had never felt such an overwhelming sense of fear in a room before. A few months ago, a historian researching the town's past stumbled upon an old newspaper article. It mentioned a tragedy in the same house nearly a century ago. A young man had gone missing, and his family had reacted in the same way. No search, no questions, just silence. The historian tried to interview the current family, but they refused to speak. The next day, he left town and never returned. Even now, strange things happen near their home. Sometimes people hear knocking from inside the house when no one is near the door. Lights flicker in the upstairs windows, even when the family is away. And on rare occasions, someone catches a glimpse of a shadow in the backyard, tall, unmoving, watching, always in the same spot. The same spot where he used to sit. No one asks about the son anymore. The family still lives there, still respected, still silent. But every now and then, when the wind is just right, a faint whisper can be heard near their home. It's always the same question, carried through the night air. Why did you let me go? The mystery of the old factory. There was an old factory in the city that was closed many years ago. Officially, it was shut down due to bankruptcy, but everyone knows that something terrible happened there. They say that something was found in the basement of the plant that forced the authorities to close it quickly. No one knows what exactly, but the locals avoid the place, even to this day. Even those who work nearby say the air feels heavier the closer you get to the rusting gates. The factory once produced machinery, but workers often complained about strange occurrences. Tools would go missing, machines would start on their own, and an eerie humming sound would sometimes fill the halls, even when everything was shut down. Some employees whispered about seeing someone or something lurking in the shadows, though no one dared to investigate. Then, one night, everything changed. One evening, a security guard doing his rounds heard a loud crash from the basement. He radioed for help but received only static. When backup arrived, they found him standing in the middle of the basement, unresponsive. His eyes were wide with terror, his hands shaking. When he finally spoke, all he could say was, "It wasn't supposed to wake up." He quit the next morning and left town without a word. Shortly after, the factory was shut down with almost no explanation. Workers were told to collect their things and leave immediately. Officials arrived, sealed off the basement, and within a week, the factory was abandoned. Documents were destroyed, and no one was allowed back inside. But those who lived nearby reported strange sounds at night, low, metallic groans, as if something beneath the factory was still alive. Years later, a group of urban explorers sneaked in, eager to uncover the mystery. They made it inside and found nothing but dust and decay. But as they approached the basement entrance, their flashlights flickered, and a deep vibration ran through the walls. One of them screamed, dropped his camera, and ran. The others followed. They never spoke of what they saw, but the next day, the entire group left town for good. A journalist once tried to uncover the truth. He dug through archives, spoke to ex-workers, and even bribed a city official for access to old records. But before he could publish anything, he disappeared. His car was found near the factory, door open, engine running. His notes were scattered on the ground, but his last message was chilling, a single sentence scrawled in his notebook. It's still there. Even now, strange things happen near the factory. At night, some claim to see flickering lights inside, though the power was cut off long ago. Others hear distant whispers, as if someone is calling for help, but no one answers. Those who get too close describe an overwhelming feeling of dread, as if something unseen is watching, waiting. And on rare occasions, the ground itself seems to tremble, ever so slightly. The city has tried to demolish the factory multiple times, but every attempt fails. Accidents, equipment failures, workers refusing to continue. It's as if something doesn't want it gone. Now, it simply stands there, rusting away, a dark stain on the city's history. No one knows what lies beneath, and no one dares to find out, because whatever it is, it was meant to stay buried. The strange priest. There was a priest in town who was highly respected. But one day, he suddenly disappeared. No one knows what happened, but rumor has it that he was involved in something very dark. The locals say it's better not to mention his name, but everyone knows that something is not right. His church remains standing, but no one dares to enter after dark. The doors are locked, yet sometimes people swear they hear whispers coming from inside. He was known for his kindness, always willing to help those in need. But some say he changed in his last few months. He grew distant, often lost in thought. Some nights, the church lights would flicker well past midnight, and strange symbols started appearing on the walls. When asked about them, he would only smile and say, "Some doors should never be opened." No one knew what he meant until the night he vanished. One evening, a young altar boy heard him arguing with someone, but when he looked inside the church, the priest was alone. He was speaking in a low voice, as if pleading with an unseen presence. Then, the candles in the church suddenly went out. The boy ran home in terror, and the next morning, the priest was gone. His robes were left folded neatly on the altar, but his whereabouts remain a mystery. The police searched for him but found nothing. His house was untouched, his belongings still in place. The only odd thing was his Bible pages torn out, passages blacked out with ink. One officer who examined it quit the force the next day. He refused to explain why, only muttering. He knew he shouldn't have looked. The case was quietly closed, and his name was never spoken again. Not long after, strange things began happening in town. People reported waking up to faint knocks on their windows at night, but when they looked outside, no one was there. A few even claimed to see a shadowy figure standing near the church, unmoving. But the moment they tried to get a closer look, it was gone. It was as if something was still lingering, something that wasn't supposed to be there. A traveler passing through the town once asked about the priest. The locals warned him to drop the subject, but he didn't listen. That night, he stayed in a small inn near the church. The next morning, his room was found empty. His things were untouched, but his bed was covered in dirt, as if he had been dragged outside. His car was still parked nearby, keys in the ignition, engine cold. He was never seen again. Some believe the priest discovered something forbidden, something that cost him his soul. Others whisper that he never truly left, that he is still there, trapped in the church, waiting. Occasionally, a brave soul will try to step inside, only to be met with an overwhelming sense of dread, as if they are being watched. The air grows heavy, and the whispers begin again, low, urgent, almost pleading. And if you stay long enough, you might hear it, a faint voice, barely more than a breath, a desperate whisper echoing through the empty church. "Help me," but by then, it's already too late. A mysterious sign. On the outskirts of the city, there is an old sign that supposedly points to a place where something important used to be. But no one knows what exactly. They say that many years ago something happened there that made the locals destroy all the evidence. No one talks about it, but everyone knows it's better not to find out the truth. The sign itself is weathered, its letters long faded, yet no one dares to remove it. People who try to follow the direction the sign points to always return unsettled. There's nothing there, just an empty field, overgrown with weeds. But those who venture too far say they feel an overwhelming sense of unease, as if something is watching. Some claim to hear faint murmurs carried by the wind, voices speaking words that no one can understand. A few years ago, a historian came to town, determined to uncover the secret. He searched old records, spoke to elderly locals, and even tried to dig near the sign. But one night, he packed his bags and left in a hurry. He refused to speak to anyone, but as he drove away, he was heard muttering, "Some things should stay buried. No one has investigated since." The strangest part is that the sign was replaced several times over the years. Every time, within days, the new one would age unnaturally fast, paint peeling, wood splintering as if it had been standing for decades. Eventually, the town gave up and left the old sign standing, letting it rot. But no matter how much it decays, the arrow still clearly points in the same direction. Once, a group of teenagers dared each other to spend a night near the sign. They laughed it off as a silly town legend, but when they returned the next morning, they were silent, their faces pale. They refused to say what had happened, only whispering, "It's still there." One of them left town the same week. The others never spoke of that night again. There are no records of what once stood in that field. No photographs, no maps, nothing. As if it was erased completely. The oldest residents remember a time when something was there, but when asked, they shake their heads and change the subject. One old man, after a few drinks, once muttered, We tore it down for a reason when pressed for details. He simply said, it tried to come back.
Some nights, passers-by claim to see something just beyond the field, a shape standing motionless, barely visible in the darkness. It never moves, never makes a sound, but the moment you blink, it's gone.
No one knows if it's real or just a trick of the mind. But one thing is certain, no one follows the sign anymore. Not after what happened last time.
Whatever secret the town is hiding, it's clear they intend to keep it buried. The sign still stands, its faded arrow pointing to nothing.
Or maybe pointing to something no one is meant to find. Because those who try to uncover the truth always leave with the same warning: don't go looking.
It's still waiting.